Hello to all of you. Introducing myself as Olivia Sanders, and now I want to talk about how I dealt with some really toxic people in my life. I never thought I'd be telling you about the moment my own grandmother attempted to burn me with boiling water. I'm a 25-year-old aspiring artist. However, here we are. It all began with the death of my mother, Sarah, 2 years ago. She was the strongest supporter and greatest friend I had, so losing her was like having a piece of my soul torn out. The exquisite jewelry she left behind was the only thing that sustained me. Every component told a tale. I lived in our family home with my grandma Martha after she passed away. Having a piece of mom around was consoling at first, but when Frank entered the scene, things became weird. Have you met Frank, Olivia? One day, Grandma asked me. He's such a gentleman. I feigned a laugh. Nice to meet you, Frank. This witty 60-year-old widower started coming over more often. I made an effort to be joyful for Grandma, but I didn't feel right. Zoe, my closest buddy, also observed it. Liv, don't you think it's time you got your own place? She asked one day over coffee. Your grandmother is behaving like a teenager when she is with Frank. I know, but I can't just leave her. Plus, all of Mom's stuff is still there, I replied. Zoe gave me a knowing look. Your mom would want you to live your life, not babysit your grandma. She had a point, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to stay. Work became my escape. I was doing graphic design at a small firm, trying to save up for art supplies. That's where I met Ethan. Hey, Olivia, check out this design I'm working on. Ethan called me over one day. As I leaned in, catching a hint of his cologne, I smiled. Wow, that's amazing. I wish I could create like that. He grinned. You're kidding, right? Your work is incredible. You should really consider doing your own art full-time. I blushed, feeling butterflies in my stomach. Ethan understood me. He saw the artist in me struggling to break free. But every time I felt like I was moving forward, something at home would pull me back. Like the night I met Frank's son, Derek, at a family dinner. So, Olivia? Derek asked, his eyes flicking between me and his dad. How long have Frank and your grandma known each other? I shrugged. A few months, I guess. Why? Derek's expression tightened. No reason, just curious. Something about his tone unsettled me, but before I could ask more, Grandma Martha burst into the room. Everyone, I have wonderful news, she exclaimed, her face glowing with excitement. Frank and I are getting married. The room went silent. It felt like a punch to the gut. Married? Grandma, isn't this a bit sudden? I asked, trying to hide my shock. She waved off my concern. Oh, pish-posh. When you know, you know. As everyone congratulated them, a heavy sense of dread settled over me. Something wasn't right, and I had no idea how bad it was about to get. This was just the beginning of a nightmare. In the weeks after Grandma's engagement announcement, everything spiraled out of control. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone, her voice tense and anxious. I'll get the money, I promise. Just give me a little more time. When I confronted her about it, she snapped. It's none of your business, Olivia. Can't an old woman have some privacy? I backed off, but my suspicions only grew. Things got even stranger when I noticed Mom's antique locket was missing from its usual place on my dresser. Grandma, have you seen Mom's locket? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She avoided my gaze. That old thing. I probably moved it while cleaning. Don't worry about it. But I was worrying a lot. I called Zoe in a panic. Zoe, I think Grandma's up to something shady. Mom's jewelry is disappearing, and she's being all secretive about money. That doesn't sound good. Liv, want me to do some digging? Zo asked. I hesitated. Would you? I feel like I'm going crazy here. While Zo played detective, I confided in Ethan during our lunch breaks. I just don't know what to think anymore, I said, overwhelmed. Ethan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Hey, we'll figure this out. You're not alone in this, he said. His touch sent a warm feeling through me. A brief respite from the chaos at home. But that peace didn't last. A few days later, Zo called with disturbing news. Liv, you might want to sit down for this. I found out your grandma's drowning in debt. And that Frank guy, he has a history of cozying up to wealthy widows and then disappearing with their money. My stomach dropped. Oh God, Zo, what do I do? We need solid proof. Keep your eyes open and document everything, she advised. For the next week, I was on high alert, watching Grandma's every move. The final straw came when I saw her sneaking out early one morning with a familiar jewelry box tucked under her arm. I followed her to a rundown pawn shop and watched in horror as she handed over piece after piece of Mom's jewelry. Unable to contain myself, I'd burst into the shop. Grandma, what are you doing? She whirled around, her face a mix of guilt and anger. Olivia, you followed me. How could you? That's Mom's jewelry. It's all I have left of her, I shouted. The pawn shop owner awkwardly excused himself, leaving us alone in the cramped, cluttered space. Grandma's expression hardened. You'll understand, she snapped. Frank and I need the money for our new life together. Your mother would have wanted me to be happy. By selling her memories? By lying to me? I could barely speak, shaking with anger and disbelief. You ungrateful child, she spat. After everything I've done for you. I stepped closer. Everything you've done? You mean stealing from me? Lying to me? And planning to run off with some con artist? Grandma's face contorted in fury. Before I could react, she grabbed a kettle of boiling water from a hot plate behind the counter and flung its contents at me. Searing pain exploded across my arm and shoulder, and I screamed, stumbling backward into a display case. The sound of shattering glass mixed with my cries of pain. Through the haze, I saw Grandma's face. No concern, no regret, just cold, hard anger. As I crumpled to the floor, cradling my burned arm, one thought became clear. The grandmother I knew and loved was gone. In her place was a stranger, someone who had just shattered the last thread of trust between us. The pawn shop owner rushed back in, shouting about calling an ambulance. But all I could focus on was Grandma frantically gathering up the jewelry with trembling hands. In that moment, as the pain threatened to overwhelm me, I made a silent vow. This betrayal wouldn't break me. It would fuel me to reclaim my life and my mother's legacy, no matter the cost. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, police reports, and tears. The burns on my arm and shoulder were healing, but the emotional scars ran deep. Zo was my rock. You're staying with me, she insisted, helping me pack up my things from Grandma's house. No arguments, she said. I didn't have the energy to argue. As we loaded the last box into Zo's car, Grandma appeared at the doorway. Olivia, please, can we talk? She asked, her voice trembling. I couldn't even look at her. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. A few days later, I got a surprising call from Derek, Frank's son. Olivia, it's Derek. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. There's something you need to know about my dad. We met at a coffee shop, and Derek spilled everything. How Frank had a history of charming wealthy widows, draining their accounts and vanishing. It's a pattern, Derek admitted, his eyes filled with shame. I've tried to stop him before, but he always slips away. Maybe this time, with your help, we can finally put an end to it. I was hesitant. I wasn't sure I could handle any more drama. But Zoe, ever the fighter, wouldn't let it go. We can't let them get away with this, Liv. We need a plan. Over the next week, we hatched a scheme. Derek would play along with Frank's wedding plans, pretending to support him. Meanwhile, we'd work with the pawn shop owner to set up a sting operation. I feel bad for ratting out your grandma, the pawn shop owner admitted when we approached him. But what she did to you, that ain't right. As we finalized the plan, Ethan was my rock. He came over after work, bringing food and offering a shoulder to cry on. But I found myself pulling away, the fear of being hurt again too overwhelming. One night, as we sat on Zoe's couch, Ethan reached for my hand. I flinched. Liv, talk to me, he pleaded. What's going on in that head of yours? I couldn't meet his eyes. I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't. Everyone I've trusted has betrayed me. My own grandmother tried to. My voice broke, unable to finish. Ethan's voice softened. I'm not them, Olivia. I would never hurt you like that. That's why I thought about Grandma too, I whispered. The hurt in his eyes was clear, but he didn't push. I understand. Just know I'm here, okay? Whatever you need. The day of the sting operation arrived. We had set up hidden cameras in the pawn shop and wired Derek for sound. The plan was for him to bring Grandma Martha and Frank to the shop under the pretense of selling family heirlooms to fund the wedding. From my spot outside, I saw them enter. Grandma clutching her purse tightly, Frank's arm around her. Even from a distance, I could see the predatory glint in his eyes. As the door closed behind them, I took a deep breath. Whatever happened next would change everything. I just hoped we were ready for it. The date of reckoning came swiftly. I stood in the back of the crowded courthouse, my heart racing as the judge read out the verdict. Frank's smug smile disappeared as the word, guilty, echoed through the room. It was over. When I went back to Grandma's house to collect the last of my things, I saw her watching from the window. Our eyes met briefly before she quickly pulled the curtains closed. That was the last time I ever saw her. With the nightmare behind me, I threw myself into my art. All the pain, betrayal, and healing poured into my canvases. Ethan stood by me through it all. These are incredible, Liv, he said one night, studying my latest piece. You're turning your pain into something beautiful. I leaned into him, feeling safe for the first time in months. I couldn't have done it without you. Zoe, being the unstoppable force she is, helped me set up my own studio. This is just the beginning, she declared as we painted the walls. You're going to be huge, Liv. I can feel it. She was right. My first small exhibition sold out in a week. Then came a feature in a local art magazine. Before I knew it, galleries in the city were calling. On the night of my exhibition opening, I stood in awe, looking around at the vibrant crowd, my art on the walls, and Ethan beaming proudly from across the room. I raised my glass to new beginnings, and Zoe grinned and said, "To the family we choose." I had been transformed into something stronger and indestructible by the hurt of betrayal. I silently thanked the struggles that had brought me thus far as I lifted my glass. They had released me, not broken me. Now that the narrative is over, I have a question for you. Would you ever be able to forgive Martha for what she did if you were in my position? Is there a boundary that, once crossed, prevents people from getting back together, even relatives? Post your ideas in the comments section below. Your thoughts and experiences are valuable, and they may be of use to others who are experiencing a similar situation. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you liked this tale and would like to hear more like it. Your generosity is greatly appreciated and enables us to keep telling these vital tales.